the statute, 776.051, subsection 2, says that if the officer knew it was unlawful, then that is not good faith. That's basically the premise of this statute. So their argument is not legal detention equals self-defense. They have to argue bad faith, and the jury instructions that we provided cover that completely.
Your Honor, unfortunately, we have a disagreement on the law because what the jury instruction says concerning the justifiable use of force of law enforcement officer is if the law enforcement officer was acting in good faith. So a precursor to the determination of the use of reasonable force is good faith. If there's a showing of bad faith, then that can be calculated in the jury to determine whether the use of force by the client is appropriate. And again, we're operating in a universe where the threshold is very low for us to present a defense.
I don't like to consider the facts of this case in the grand scheme of things, ignoring the use of deadly force. There's just a substantial difference between just regular force and deadly force. I'm not aware of any law that says anyone is authorized to use deadly force against an officer acting within the scope of their duties. So that's 7760511. So in this case, I believe to argue that he could have walked away is irrelevant. He didn't walk away. That he could have, I mean, the facts of the case are he took out a gun.
Facts of the case also show in the video that my client did try to walk away and he got force followed by a basic trainer. That's in the video.
And that's a basis for shooting him? Is that what you're going to argue to the jury? That because he put his hands on your client, he had a right to shoot him?
Among other things that we'll get to in the presentation of our case. But I mean, I think as the court just explained, and I agree with the court in the sense of there is not a law that allows deadly force on an officer that was performed in the lawful execution of his duty and acting in good faith. Therefore, a defendant, in defending himself in self-defense, can present evidence on two regards: that the lawfulness of the officer's duty is in question, and that the manner in which he was performing that duty was in bad faith. So what we are confused and hamstrung.
Agreeing to that, do you reach then the conclusion that he can use deadly force?
If the officer is acting unlawfully and in bad faith, yes, I think the common sense, the binary equation is if it's lawful and it's good faith, no deadly force. If it's unlawful and bad faith, then deadly force is appropriate, and 776 applies just as it would in any other situation.
So bad faith on part of the law enforcement officer who is not using deadly force can be met with deadly force by your client.
I disagree with the way the court's characterizing it because in the stand your ground law, one needs to have a reasonable appreciation that deadly force is reasonable to counter a perceived showing of deadly force. So it's not necessary that there's an actual use of deadly force. The decision determines on the reasonableness of that force under the circumstances.
I remain unconvinced. My ruling stands. I believe that the facts of the case don't lead to a conclusion that the proposed jury instruction would illuminate anything else other than what is in the standard. It wouldn't expand what is in the standards. I only confuse the issues for the jurors. I think the standards sufficiently cover what needs to be told to the jurors as far as what the law is in this case, and then that would be the basis for my ruling. And I'm heavily guided by 776.0511, which specifically talks about not having that ability to resist, at least with deadly force, a law enforcement officer's execution of their duty, whatever that may be.
The court provides some latitude in, I guess where we're looking for some clarification on the ruling is, why is it inappropriate for the jury to learn about the types of police-citizen encounters, even through cross-examination?
Why is that relevant?
Because it's relevant, Judge, because the threshold is not very
What is it
high.
proving or disproving in this case?
Proving the fact that Officer Ringer could have been not lawfully executing a duty and could have been in bad faith. If he is disregarding certain observational cues that says a person cannot be convicted for resisting the violence, battery on a law enforcement officer, that though, and even more precise than that, that it's not a lawful duty if it's an unlawful detention.
That's why I use the word obfuscation in the order. My ruling stands, okay? Okay?
Just real quick, Judge, in regard to the search of the apartment, we're putting the apartment in Daytona Beach. We're putting on Detective Detter this morning at some point. We're not going to go into the search of that apartment or the items that were found. We're not agreeing that they might not become relevant on cross-examination later, but we're not going to introduce them.
Okay. Where do we stand as far as scheduling?
Judge, I think we're running 2 witnesses slow, but we might be able to pick up the pace, and if everything goes well, by Wednesday afternoon or Thursday morning, the state should be done presenting their case.
Okay, how about jury instructions?
We were going to go over them lunch today, and we'll get a copy to the court and the
Okay.
defense by close of business today. That's okay?
Yeah, I do need them.
Yes, sir. We'll get those. Do you all have the proposed self-defense you're going to want to use? I need your, because it's very, okay.
Okay.
We'll add that in.
All right, anything else we need to address before?
I don't believe so, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then let's take a short break until 9 a.m.
All rise.
They're not working? Oh, are you going to be using the TV?
Today, yes, sir.
It's not on.
I'll turn it on.
Well, I don't know what's...
Yes, sir.
Same with that one over there. I don't really know.
I don't.
Wait a minute. Can you call them? Oh, there it is. It's on.
That one
All rise for jury.
You may be seated. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Did you all become aware of any of the facts about this case, any information that relates to the case while you were away from the courtroom? All right, thank you. State called your next. Oh, are the TVs on? All of them? Okay, yeah. We have IT coming to fix that one. All right, state called your next witness.
They would call Christian Patella.
Stand here, face forward, raise your right hand, this one.
Do you swear to tell the truth in this proceeding, so help you God?
Yes.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Could you please state your entire name and spell it for the court reporter?
Christian Patella, Christian, Patella, Botella.
And sir, where are you employed?
City of Daytona Beach Police Department.
And in what capacity are you employed there, sir?
I'm a detective in the Criminal Investigations Division. I'm currently the Criminal Intelligence Detective.
What does that require of you on a day-to-day basis, being a criminal intelligence detective, sir?
I collect and research data from different resources and stuff, and assist detectives as they need it, monitor social media, look at other reports, gather and collect other bulletins from other agencies.
Does that include assisting robbery homicide detectives in that branch of the detective investigative division?
Yes, sir.
You can just speak up a little bit.
Yes, sorry.
That's all right. And how long have you been a law enforcement officer?
10 plus years.
All with Daytona Beach?
Yes, sir.
Have you been a detective in any of the other divisions in CID?
Yes, I have. I started as a property detective, and I was the auto theft detective, and I'm currently the criminal intelligence detective.
And how long have you been the criminal intelligence detective?
Since 2021.
2021?
Yes, sir.
And you said that in that work you monitor social media.
Yes, sir.
Is that something you do regularly?
Yes, sir.
Does that include social media platforms like Facebook?
Yes, sir.
Does it include social media platforms like Instagram?
Yes, sir.
I want to draw your attention to the night of June 23rd of 2021. Were you on or off duty that night?
I was off duty.
And did you become involved in the investigation regarding the shooting of Officer Jason Rayner that night?
Yes.
How did you become involved if you were off duty?
I was at night. I was just scrolling through social media, and then I came across a post that an officer had been hurt in Daytona Beach shooting. Contacted my supervisor, like, hey, have you heard anything about an officer-involved shooting? And once it was determined that an officer did get shot, I decided to come in and provide any assistance necessary.
And when you first came in that night, where did you go?
To the area of Kingston and Beach.
When you arrived to the area of Kingston and Beach Street in Daytona Beach, were you briefed on the status of the investigation?
Yes, sir.
You recall who briefed you when you arrived?
Sergeant Karcher and Lieutenant Wallen, I believe.
And what was Sergeant Karcher's position at the time with the police department?
At the time, he was the sergeant for the robbery homicide unit.
So he was the supervisor of the detectives who were investigating the homicide? Or what actually become a homicide?
Yes, sir.
Did you perform any duties out at the scene of 133 Kingston?
I canvassed the area to see if we can locate any possible witnesses. And then later that night, I assisted in a search warrant.
Can you tell the jury what you mean by canvassing the area?
By canvassing the area is we go and walk around, knock doors, check on people, see if there's cameras, knock on doors, see if they heard anything, witness anything that can assist in the investigation.
Is that an investigative tool that's commonly used at the very beginning of an investigation?
Yes, sir.
Was your canvassing of the area fruitful in any way?
No, sir.
So you didn't locate any witnesses or relevant surveillance cameras, anything like that?
We did talk to a couple of witnesses, but they only heard, and then, they already had made a statement to other officers.
So did you find any witnesses that make any kind of identification?
No.
Did you go somewhere else after you were at the 133 Kingston area?
Yes, I met at the Justice Center, and then I was assisting Volusia County deputies to check another location, I think up in Ormond Beach, for a possible associate of Othal Wallace.
And was that fruitful in any way?
No.
Did there come a time that night when you were given a particular task in regard to social media?
Yes, sir.
What was that task, sir?
So once he was identified as the shooter, his social media.
Let me jump in. So you say once he was identified. Who was identified?
Oh yes, sorry. Once Othal Wallace was identified as as the shooter, I was provided his Instagram account, and I located his Instagram account.
And do you recall the screen name for that Instagram account?
RBG Vibes.
Was this account a public social media profile?
Yes, it was public.
Are you comfortable telling the jury the difference between public versus private social media profiles?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Once you have an Instagram account, you can either make it private or public. If you make the Instagram account public, anybody with an Instagram account can view your stories, can view your photographs, can view your friends list, and can also view any type of post or information you post into Instagram.
So you could describe to the jury that night if you had the name, the RBG Vibes instead?
Yes.
How would somebody locate that account on Instagram that night?
You go on Instagram and then you hit search and then you type in the name RBG Vibes and then the account will pull up.
And would you be able to see with a person that night, be able to see everything on the account because it was open?
Yes, sir.
And you mentioned something in your response a moment ago that people would be able to see stories. Did you say that a moment ago?
Yes, sir.
Could you, as best you go, are you comfortable describing what a story on an Instagram account?
Yeah, so a story is like little photos, little videos, anything you want to post throughout the day. It will come across the feed, and then you can click on it, view it, and to my knowledge, it's only up on Instagram up to 24 hours.
So if I wanted to put up a story of myself and put that on my Instagram account, I could take a video of myself and go right to my account and post it?
Yes, sir.
And you said it would be there for 24 hours?
Yes. When
you went to the account for RBG Vibes, was your attention drawn to a particular story post that was on that incident?
Yes. It was a black screen and there was an audio on it.
Without going into the content of the post, can you just say why your attention was drawn to it?
The time that it said it was posted approximately 2 hours.
And what time were you looking at this post approximately? Did you see it?
Approximately 11 o'clock, 11:05 at night.
11:05 p.m. the night.
PM, yes.
The night that Officer Rayner was shot.
Yes, sir.
Did you make an effort to memorialize this post?
I just screen recorded it.
How do you do that?
So your phones, for instance, at the time I had the iPhone. So all you do is just there's an application on the phone that you can screen record. So like it will record everything on your screen that you're viewing. So it's just whatever you've seen on your screen, like to include phone numbers, anything, apps, anything that the screen is showing, you can record it. So it's a screen recording.
And did you do that with this particular post?
Yes, I did.
And when you screen recorded that particular post, did it capture even the time on your cell phone when you were capturing the post?
Yes, sir.
And when you found this post and you listened to it and recorded it, memorialized it, did you disseminate that post to investigators?
Yes, yes. The investigators on scene.
Did that include lead detective David Dinardi?
Yes, he was aware of that.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Sir, approaching you was the mark of identification, the state's exhibit R. Do you recognize that DVD?
Yes.
How do you recognize that DVD?
It has the signature.
Does it also have a date as well?
Yes.
Did you view the contents or listen to the contents of that DVD on that date?
Yes.
Does that DVD contain a fair and accurate representation of the Instagram story you reported that night?
Yes, sir.
Has it been altered in any way that you could tell?
No, sir.
Your Honor, at this time, I'm states R and evidence is the next United States exhibit.
Any objection?
Your Honor, I'd object at this point because I don't believe they've authenticated it as being or what time it was uploaded, the video. I didn't hear a specific time, if it occurred before the incident, after the incident, or anything like that.
I'll overrule the objection. I think there's sufficient information provided through the witness's testimony.
And Your Honor, at this time, I would move to publish the Instagram story.
You may do so.
No. I want y'all to know something, man. I love y'all. I want y'all to know something, man. I love y'all. Black power. Stay strong as a nation. Keep fucking fighting. Move fucking forward. Don't let these pussy ass pigs fuck with you. I love y'all. Black power and shit.
You can just leave it there, Mr. Bush, for 1 second. What is this last page at the end of the story that the jury's seeing?
That's his account. So that's the photos. You can tell that it's open to the public because I don't follow him and stuff. You can just pull up the name and all the information will show.
Objection, Your Honor. Can we bring something up outside the presence of the jury?
Okay. Is it sidebar or?
Well, it might take a little while, but then I can bring it up on the screen.
Okay. You don't mind stepping up. All rising into the jury room.
Agrees out, Your Honor.
Okay, you had an objection?
Well, yes, Your Honor. First, I want to see the picture first, but all I can see is done very small. Your Honor, first of all, I would ask for a mistrial based on the fact that per your ruling, there was supposed to be no mention of anything regarding the new Black Panther Party or NFAC, and clearly there's a picture here that's showing the new Black Party, new Black Panther Party. So they violated the pretrial ruling by this court. Second of all, it's extremely prejudicial. We have a machete here. We have, this is the picture with the AK-47 that they're not supposed to be entering into evidence only by stipulation.
I'm gonna have to come down there and look at it. I can't see it on my screen. It's too small. I'm assuming that your screen is just as small.
But I think if they take this photo back with them, you know, then they're able to look at it. Now all of a sudden they can be able to see the new Black Panther Party.
It's not a photo, Jeff.
I'm sorry?
It's not a photo, it's an audio recording. It's not like you're.
This is from his
This is,
Instagram account.
as I understand, this is what shows in when you open his Instagram account, that is the,
Yes, sir, at the time.
okay.
And they're trying to-
Let me just I can't see what you're saying. Where's the Black Panther?
It's in here, right here. We know that because of the pictures, and it also does the AK-47. Thirdly, they were able to have that to go back with them.
Where does it say Black Panther?
We know that because of the picture that they were trying to introduce.
Okay, all right. Let's deal with that one first. I can't see anything on there that says Black Panther. And I'm standing 3 inches from it, and I can't read anything that indicates Black Panther. Does the Black Panthers have a symbol? Is that the symbol of the Black Panthers?
Yes.
Okay. And what is the Black Panther symbol?
Yeah. I think he has a necklace on, it's overcoming that. I think the issue is now this has been presented to the jury, and they're able to take this back or see it again.
No double. All right, anything else? As to the Black Panther, I'm going to deny the motion. It's almost impossible to see what's on there. You're saying the rifle is on there too?
Yeah, you see the sky right there.
Okay, so you see looks like the back of the rifle. All right, what was the other one?
Well, the other was the machete. I have no idea that just shows you.
All right, anything else? Anything else? Okay, I'll deny the motion. However, this last screen, is that necessary?
The defense objected to authentication. If this goes to authentication, it's got pictures of Mr. Wallace on the page that it was pulled from. That's why I left it in. And of course, this was disclosed to the defense.
But he denied my objections.
I understand that. I don't know if you guys are going to argue and proposing that this isn't Mr. Wallace's intent. This shows that this is intent.
I didn't look at any of these pictures. Are there other
No.
inflammatory pictures?
No, I don't think any of the others, just those two.
Well, the machete, clearly that's not prejudicial in this case. I'm assuming the jurors are going to try to scrutinize this. The jurors have a screen in the jury room Wallace said it is his account, yeah, other than this officer saying this is what showed on the news sheet. So my ruling stands. Bill, come in.
And you denied it, Mr. Chairman.
Motion, Mr. Hall denied. I want to put on the record that I'm looking at the images on the largest TV that we have in the courtroom. I don't even know what the dimensions of this TV is, but it's extraordinarily large, and I can't make out any of the things that are made up, raised by the defense. I know the viewers in the jury room have a screen which is probably half the size or smaller than this one, and the viewers have individual screens that they share in the jury box, which are just standard monitor size screens, and I do not see any of that other than the main picture of the defendant up above and a few other photographs of him. Thank you. All right, ready for the jury? Bring the jury in.
All rise for the jury.
Can I get the court reporter up here? Can I, counsel sidebar? Can you?
No,
All right, you have any additional? Oh, stand by.
Detective, having seen that post, the time on your phone, is that the time that's in the upper, I know it was not, but in the upper left corner, the 23:05?
Yes, sir.
Is that military time?
Yes, sir.
So what time is non-military time is that?
11:05 p.m.
Again, the post was how old, it's on Instagram?
Approximately 2 hours.
Yes.
So we're about around 9 or so.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Any cross-examine? Do you need the screen?
No.
Okay, can you move the screen back?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, you may proceed.
Detective Patella, did you know anything of Othal Wallace prior to June 23rd, 2021?
No, sir.
Okay, and you were able to locate the video, or not the video, but the audio that was on Othal Wallace's account, his Instagram account?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is it possible to record an audio and then download it at a later time?
I mean, yes. Like for Instagram we talking about?
Yeah.
Yes.
So you don't know if he downloaded the audio 5 days before and then downloaded it that evening, or if he downloaded it, 3 months before and then downloaded it that night, do you?
Correct.
Okay. And then you had no idea that was Othal Wallace on the audio, do you?
No, sir.
Nothing else?
Thank you. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, may the witness be excused.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
May you excuse from the subpoena?
Thank you, sir.
Yes. All right, state your next witness.
Okay, Dale Detter.
I think, let me make sure, pretty sure. Let me get him out of here. Okay, let me save that. Let's put it in the TV.
Watch out, Mike. Someone get you your witness? All right, you'll raise your hand and be sworn, please.
Do you swear to tell the truth in this proceeding, sir?
I do.
You'll come around to the right and my left, your left, my right.
Just got across the Detter.
I know.
If you make sure you keep your voice up so that yours can hear what you have to say. State, you may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Could you please state your entire name and spell it for the court reporter?
Dale Thomas Detter, first name spelled D-A-L-E, middle name Thomas, T-H-O-M-A-S, last name Detter, D-E-T-T-E-R.
And where are you employed, sir?
City of Daytona Beach as a law enforcement officer.
What's your job at the city of Daytona Beach?
Currently, I'm assigned to the Criminal Investigation Division as a crime scene investigator.
So Daytona Beach, y'all have a specialized detectives who do crime scene alone,
Yes, sir,
and you're one of them.
I am.
How long have you been a law enforcement officer, sir?
23 years,
All with Daytona Beach or with other agencies as well?
all with Daytona Beach.
Any military experience?
No, sir.
How long have you been in the crime scene unit?
Full-time, about 5 years now. I did part-time for about a year and a half prior to that.
Are you the lead detective in the crime scene unit?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell the jury what the responsibilities of a crime scene unit, your crime scene unit, are?
Our main responsibilities are for documentation and collection of evidence at crime scenes.
Do you guys ever interview witnesses?
Not typically, no, sir.
Interview defendants, anything else, anything other than just crime scene?
No, sir.
Can you describe for the jury any specialized training you have in crime scene investigation?
Basic crime scene investigation training, homicide investigations, injury and death investigations. And there's a forensic application of DNA, which relates to DNA with genealogy, and then some in-house training with different chemicals that we use, super glue, fuming for latent prints, ninhydrin, and the use of luminol.
Let's talk about some of those different things. When it comes to processing items for latent prints, is that something you do in your crime scene unit?
Yes, sir.
Does your crime scene unit do DNA?
We swab for DNA. We do not analyze the DNA.
Who does the testing and the analysis of DNA you might question?
Typically, we either send it off to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, or there's different private labs that we've used in the past.
And where is it okay if I call it that DLE?
Yes, sir.
What lab do you also send your DLE items to?
For DNA processing and firearms, we typically send it to the Orlando office.
Occasionally, do you also utilize the Jacksonville office from time to time?
We do for ballistics and/or latent print.
Let's just talk a little bit about crime scenes generally. When you're called out to a crime scene, let's say, for example, shooting, not necessarily this one, what do you typically do when you first arrive? Take us through the steps of your analysis of crime scenes.
Typically, when I arrive on scene, it's already been cordoned off with crime scene tape. There's usually an officer or two there that are there for security reasons at the scene. I will get with either a detective or one of the first responding officers to kind of get a brief rundown of what may have transpired. From there, I will walk the crime scene, mark any items of evidence that I think are pertinent at the time, and then from there, I will begin photographing the scene and then eventually collecting the evidence.
So when you collect evidence, let's say you found a firearm. I know there wasn't a firearm evidence, right?
Correct.
Let's say you found a firearm at the crime scene. How do you package something?
Typically, we will, if it's on the scene, if I don't have a firearm box with me, it will be put in an envelope, and once back at the police department, we will download it, put it into a firearm box, and then submit it into property and evidence.
What about, say, you found an item of bloody clothing? How would you package that?
Typically, with items that are bloody, they need to be dried before they're packaged, otherwise they'll mildew and change. So we place them in a drying cabinet, and then once they're dried, they will be packaged and placed into property and evidence.
And do you occasionally, when the case dictates it, hold an item of evidence actually in the crime scene unit?
Yes, sir, we have.
And is evidence secured there as well?
Yes, sir.
I want to draw your attention to June 23rd now of 2021. Were you still in the crime scene unit as a detective at that time?
Yes, sir.
And did you respond out to 133 Kingston Avenue
Yes, sir.
that night of June 23rd?
Yes, sir.
As you already described for the jury, when you got there, did you get that general briefing?
Yes, sir. I met with Sergeant Karcher and Officer Acosta. Sergeant Karcher advised that Officer Rayner had been shot and was transported to the hospital. And then we began our processing.
So you had that knowledge that you're going into a crime scene that involved a shooting?
Correct.
And was anybody working with you? Did you have anybody else?
Officer Acosta, she was one of our part-time crime scene personnel.
Can you describe the crime scene in general, the area that you were walking and photographing and looking at?
It's a single-building apartment complex with 2 stories. It's the rear parking area of that complex. The whole area of the back parking lot, more to the east, I would say.
How was the lighting back there?
It was dark towards the back part of the parking lot, and the lighting that was there was more up on the building.
Did you bring any lights to illuminate the parking lot as best you could?
We brought one of our portable lighting systems.
Were there also vehicles back in that parking lot still?
There were a couple of vehicles, yes, sir.
Before going to, did you photograph the area?
Yes, sir.
Before going to those photographs, later on that night, did your agency use a drone to take some aerial photos?
It's my understanding there was some drone work that was being done.
And have you reviewed some photographs from that drone?
Yes, sir.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Sir, I'm showing you as marked for identification states the S is 6 separate photographs. Will you please look at those 6 photographs?
It appears to be the rear parking area.
Are those the photographs that were taken from the drone?
It appears to be, sir.
Do they fairly and accurately represent the crime scene, the lighting? You observed it on June 23rd, 2021?
Yes, sir.
Altered or tampered in any way you can see?
Doesn't appear so.
Nor are those states as for identification and evidence as the next time the states.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Without objection, admitted as evidence.
And permission to publish?
You may do so.
With that command, will this sit down?
Okay, you need to speak up, though. You're going to step down, okay?
Yes, sir.
And have him stand on the right side here. So as not to block the doors. You stand over here or?
Let's get on that side. I'm going to the first photograph. Can you orient the jury, some of the items, like where's the building in this photograph?
The building would be down here along this bottom portion of the screen.
And towards the back here behind the red car, is this the fence line back here?
Yes, sir. There's some curbing here and then a fence line as well.
And the car to the far left, whose vehicle is that?
This is Officer Rayner's patrol vehicle.
Had it been explained to you that Officer Rayner's patrol vehicle had been moved?
Yes, sir.
Is this the lighting that y'all brought down here at the bottom of the screen?
Yes, sir.
Photograph 2. Does this just kind of look a little more to the, which direction would this be? To my right?
The east is here. This would be to the west, and then we're looking to the south.
This photograph depicts a little more of the parking lot to the west.
Correct.
Okay. Photograph 3. First, can you orient us in terms of where the building is?
Again, this would be the building. The photo would be taken kind of from the eastern end of the parking area, looking towards the west.
So again, if I go back to the previous photo, we're seeing the red or burgundy vehicle here. Is this the same red or burgundy vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And again, is this your illumination that y'all brought?
Correct.
Again, can you orient us in terms of direction first?
Again, we're more towards the center of the parking area, looking towards the west. Again, this is the same room vehicle building over here on the right.
And again, the parking lot, this is illuminated by your lights, not by the lights from the apartment.
Correct.
So are there any street lights at that time that you recall being back behind the apartment?
No, the only lighting I recall was the ones that were on the building.
Such as this one here in the upper right of the screen?
Yes, sir.
Again, can you orient us in terms of direction of this photo?
Again, this would be from the very eastern end of the parking lot looking to the west. To our right would be the building, Officer Rayner's patrol vehicle here on the bottom left.
And do we get a better look here on the left side of the fencing and the shrubbery behind the parking area?
Yes, sir. The curbing here, and then the shrubbery is actually on the fence.
And photograph E, where's the camera kind of turned here?
We're looking kind of more towards the building, again, facing to the west.
And so the jury's aware, is this pathway here, is that one access point for vehicles to get back into the parking lot?
Yes, sir. There's actually two. There's one on the western end of the building, and then there's also one on the eastern end of the building.
So kind of right behind the drone, there's another roadway?
Correct.
And then Kingston would be on the exact other side of this building?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. For now, you can return to the witness stand. Actually, Detective Detter, you could probably stay down. I'm sorry. While you're down here, Detective, I'm going to show you State's Exhibit T. Just flip through those.
They're my crime scene photos from the night of the incident.
Do they depict the actual scene, but also items of evidence that you collected?
Yes, sir.
Do they fairly and accurately depict those items as they appear to you in the scene as it appeared to you on June 23rd of 2021?
Yes, sir.
Altered or tampered with in any way you could see?
Doesn't appear so.
Your Honor, I remove this composite exhibit into evidence states T for identification.
Without objection,
No objection.
I will give admitted this evidence.
Detective, before we actually go into the photographs, did you collect a gun belt and a firearm? At the scene, or photograph a gun belt and a firearm at the scene?
Yes, sir.
Where was that gun belt and firearm?
It was in the trunk of Officer Rayner's vehicle.
Was the firearm still in the gun belt?
Yes, sir.
Was the clip over the firearm?
Yes, sir.
Did you also locate in that parking lot a hat?
Yes, sir.
Did you collect that hat?
We did.
Did you photograph that hat?
We did.
At this time, I would move to publish the last state's exhibit, which was 16 for the jury.
You may proceed.
First photo here, what are we looking at?
This is Officer Rayner's patrol vehicle, and as previous pictures, it's in the southeastern portion of the parking lot.
Again, this was after, as it had been told to you, it had been moved.
Yes, sir.
Photograph B, what are we looking at here?
This is a picture of Officer Rayner's trunk of the vehicle, his duty belt that was secured in the trunk.
And we see the various accoutrements that he would have on his belt, his radio.
Radio, firearm, asp. And in that photo, that's always really visible right there.
Going to photograph C.
Again, flashlight, asp, firearm, radio.
This is appears to be the taser back here.
Correct.
Going to photograph D. What are we looking at in photograph D?
This is just a closer up picture of the firearm that was holstered on the gun belt.
And is this the strap that you previously testified about that was still over the rear of the firearm?
Correct.
Now, photograph E. First, where's the building compared to where you are taking this photograph?
The building would be behind me and kind of going towards my right.
And do we see Officer Rayner's vehicle again here?
Yes, sir.
And do we see, even though the color, we can't tell color, but do we see that maroon or red car?
It's kind of over here in the middle of the photo on the right.
And some items are marked here. What are these items back here against the curb?
Item A is where some of the items where they had treated Officer Rayner. Items of evidence that we located there were his nameplate. We call them keepers, duty belt keepers, that attach to the gun belt, go over the gun belt, keep them secured. There was, I believe, a credit card that was located there, and then there were a long sleeve shirt and I think a white T-shirt that were bloody that were located there as well.
Is this another angle of kind of the items, or the area we were just looking at when you turn, I guess, to the west?
Correct. Again, items A and C that were in there, and then B is the hat that was located in the parking lot.
And again, the same maroon car that we saw in the drone photos?
Correct.
Photograph G, kind of self-explanatory, but is the building to your right here?
Yes, sir. That would be the building on the right.
So you'd be looking directly westbound?
Pretty much, yes, sir.
So with these last three photographs, is it just you turning more westbound with each photo?
Correct.
To document the scene?
Yes, sir.
H, what are we looking at here? What direction? What direction? Let's start with that.
We would be looking in a southeasterly direction. Again, my back would be to the building, the maroon car in view, items A and C, and the hat P.
Photograph I.
Again, building behind me, and there's a kind of more of a direct shot to the south of the placard and the items that are marked.
Now photograph J, what are we looking at here?
Again, this is for items marked with A. Officer Rayner's nameplate was found in here. There's a black credit card over here, and the two shirts that were over here that were found.
So is this the actual, when you're talking about the curb, are you referring to here?
This would be the curbing
Okay, the
that I
parking.
was talking about, but there is some concrete block against the fence line.
So you've got some parking curbing, then some concrete block against the fence line?
Correct.
And this fence line is right behind the concrete block with appears to be shrubbery?
Yes, sir.
Photograph K, what are we looking at?
This is a photo of item B, the hat that was in the middle of the park.
And detectives, is this typically how you photograph crime scenes? You start farther away and work in closer with your photographs?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, detective. Now you can go back to the witness for now.
You may.
Sir, I'm approaching you with states that it can keep for identification and a pair of scissors.
You don't need to.
I'm gonna need it for a few more photos. Dark gloves here, if you need them. Can you open that on? Don't take it out, just open it and look inside.
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize the item that's contained inside that bag?
Yes, sir.
What is it? What's in there?
It's the baseball hat that was photographed in the middle of the parking lot.
Is it in the same or substantially similar conditions when you photographed it in the parking lot?
Appears so.
Was that item appear to have been sent to FDLE?
Yes, sir.
How can you tell?
Typically, they use the red evidence, and then they also have their yellow sticker with some initialing on it as well.
Has it been altered or tampered with other than FDLE looking at it based on their tape there?
Doesn't appear so.
Can I remove this item into evidence as the next number states exhibit?
No objection. Without objection, admitted.
Just if I can have detective just take it out. I'm fine if he stays at the witness stand and holds it up to publish it. Thank you, sir. Do you know where this hat actually went the night of the shooting?
I had turned it over to Captain Loomis, who was in turn going to be giving it to FDLE to have it processed.
Now, in regard to the duty belt and the firearm, did you collect those items that night or did you do something else with them?
They were locked, secured in the trunk of the car in our crime scene garage. It was kind of being determined whether they were going to be doing a search warrant to get any of those items. Eventually, it was determined that they were not, and the duty belt was taken out of the vehicle and placed in the crime lab.
And can you tell the jury how a car gets from, for instance, this location to Daytona Beach Police Department and security?
We have a contract record service, Daytona Record Service. Typically, the vehicle is sealed, and then an officer or detective will follow the vehicle back to our police department, and then it's placed in the garage that is secured.
And eventually, did you make a determination that no search warrant was necessary to take the belt out of the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Did you take the duty belt and the firearm out of the vehicle?
We did.
And where did you put it after that?
It was in the crime lab.
And is that a secured location?
Yes, sir.
And do you recall, was there a reason why it didn't go to property and evidence right away?
We were trying to make a determination of how we could best tag the items with all items intact, and it kind of went back and forth for a little while.
Let me ask you this, does property and evidence typically want a loaded firearm in property and evidence?
No, sir.
Was that one of the reasons you kept it in the crime lab?
One of them, yes, sir.
Did you want to preserve it in the condition that you found it as well?
Yes, sir.
At a later time, to your knowledge, was the firearm taken out of the gun belt so safely secured in property evidence? That was separate.
Yes, sir.
Were you present for that, or did you break them down?
I did.
That first witness, Your Honor? That looks like state's E for identification. You recognize this item?
Yes, sir.
What is it?
Appears to be the gun belt from Officer Ranger.
Other than it being mounted on this board, is it in the same or substantially similar condition as when you photographed it? Later removed it from the trunk and then placed it in evidence?
Yes, sir, with the items that were taken down.
So the difference is the firearm's not in the belt, but otherwise the same condition.
Yes, sir.
This time I move state's E for identification and evidence is the next exhibit.
No objection.
Without objection, admitted this evidence.
First witness again, Your Honor.
You may.
I'm now approaching you with state's F for identification. You recognize this item?
Yes, sir.
What is it?
Appears to be Officer Ranger's firearm.
In the same or substantially similar condition as when you broke it down and took it out of the duty belt?
Yes, sir.
And when you placed it in evidence?
Yes, sir.
Altered or tampered with in any way you can see other than being mounted on this phone board?
Doesn't appear so, sir.
Your Honor, move state's F for identification and evidence is the next one, state's.
No objection.
Without objection, admitted this evidence.
Your Honor, I move to publish these two items. May the detective step down.
Step down, please.
First, I move to publish state's 18. We hold that up for the jury for a moment. Thank you, sir. And next, I move to publish state's 19. Detective, that first night you're out there searching in the parking lot, you look for a shell case.
Yes, sir.
At that time, did you all know whether or not a semi-automatic firearm or revolver had been used in the crime?
We did not.
Do you know the difference between the two?
Yes, sir.
Can you explain to the jury why that would matter in terms of looking for a shell casing?
Typically with a revolver, the bullets are in a cylinder on the firearm. Once the bullets are fired, its shell casing does not eject. It stays in the cylinder and then rotates for the next round to be used. A semi-automatic firearm, once you fire a round, it actually extracts the shell casing that comes out of the firearm and seats another bullet to be used from.
So if a revolver was used, would you expect to find a shell casing?
No, sir.
If a semi-automatic firearm was used, as you described, would you expect to find a shell casing somewhere?
We would hope to, yes, sir.
Did you spend quite a bit of time looking that night for a shell casing?
We did.
Was that fruitful in any way that night?
That night, no, sir.
Did you do something about that the next day? Did you take another crack at it in the daylight?
Yes, sir. I had told Officer Karcher that I felt we needed to come back in the daylight hours with normal everyday lighting to have a better look at it. Once we came in the morning, we went down to the scene. A couple of detectives had arrived prior to me, and then when I arrived.
And were you all able to locate the shell casing?
When I arrived on scene, Detective Toledo had advised me that she or they had found a casing.
And did you do the same thing you did the night before, where we saw the crime scene photographs? Photograph the area and the casing before collecting it?
Yes, sir.
Can I approach witness again, Your Honor? Showing states B for identification is a 4-page composite.
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize those 4 photographs?
Yes, sir.
What did they depict?
The photos of the day that the casing was found of the parking lot and the casing.
So these are daytime photos of the parking lot behind 133 Kingston.
Correct.
Been altered or tampered in any way you can see?
Doesn't appear so.
Fairly accurate, represent how the parking lot looked to you, I guess, this would be on June 24th, 2021?
Yes, sir.
At this time, I put state to be in evidence as the next one state's exhibit.
No objection. Without objection, admitted as evidence.
Permission to publish states 20?
Can I use TV?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
May I witness step down?
Yeah. Can you move the microphone back?
Sorry, Judge. Good, you still have my pointer. Thank you for holding on to it. Can you orient the jury in terms of where the building is in this photo?
This would be similar view, shooting due south. Building would be behind me.
And at this time, the red car is gone.
Correct.
Photograph B, what direction are we looking here?
This would be, I would be more on the eastern end, facing, shooting towards the west.
And what is this placard 1 being used to mark?
That is where the shell casing is located.
And what's this area here that appears to be red?
That's where item A in previous photos had been marked, where the T-shirts and the nameplate and the credit card were located.
So some of the bloody items you had collected. Photograph C, are we just kind of moving closer and closer to this placard 1?
Yes, sir.
And finally, photograph D, what are we looking at here?
Closer up view of the shell casing marked by the placard 1.
Did you collect this shell casing, sir?
Yes, sir.
Did you package it in a manner that you've already described for the jury here today?
Yes, sir.
You're going to turn to the stand, thank you, sir. I don't think you'll need your gloves again. states N as in Nancy. Identification.
That's it, all. Yes.
W for Wilson for identification. You recognize that item?
It appears to be the shell casing recovered on that day on the 24th.
And on the back side of that item is actually kind of packaging you place the shell casings into.
Yes, sir. This would be our packaging with my property.
The appropriate labeling for the item.
Correct.
Is there FDA tape on this item as well?
Appears to be, yes, sir.
This item went to FDA.
Yes, sir.
The same substantially similar conditions when you collected it.
Appears so.
Our receipts W, evidence is the next time receipt.
No objection.
Without objection, committee this evidence.
And witness step down and publish, Your Honor.
May do something.
Done with its picture. Yes.
Like I said, you will have all these items with you when you deliver.
Thank you, sir. Stand. If I can just have one moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Thank you, Detective. I'll tender the witness, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Defense, do you need the TV?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yeah. Just go back to the PK rooms. Oops, sorry.
You're fine. Which one do you want, Terry? The nighttime.
drone.
The drone.
And if I just go forward with these,
It'll
then
go,
it'll
yep.
go into the
Mhm.
next ones. Detective Detter, how are you today?
Pretty good, sir. You?
Good. You weren't the lead investigator on this case, were you?
No, sir.
Who was?
I think it was Detective Dinardi.
Dinardi? Okay. All right. And when you were there doing these drone photos, about what time was that?
I arrived on scene around 10 o'clock, so I'm not sure exactly when the drone photos. We had already set up our lighting and stuff, so I would imagine 11 o'clock-ish.
Okay. So, this incident took place at roughly about 8:50. Does that seem right?
From what I know, yes, sir.
Okay. And would have been somewhat lighter at that point than it was when you arrived, with it being just after the summer solstice?
Yeah, I would say depending on what time the sun goes down at that.
Okay. All right. All right. And actually, if I could have you come down. Just wanna go over a couple things. Okay. And again, this picture is depicting what?
This is the rear parking area of 133 Kingston.
And when you were investigating what was going on, you knew that Rayner's vehicle had been moved?
Yes, sir.
Do you know approximately where it was when the incident took place, based on your investigation?
From my understanding, it was somewhere in this area here.
Okay. And then do you know where Mr. Wallace's vehicle would have been during the incident?
From what I know, the incident and where Officer Rayner had fallen was here in this area, and I believe that the suspect vehicle would have been right in this area.
Okay. And then, so you have this maroon car that was here at the time of the incident?
Yes, sir.
And then you have Officer Rayner's vehicle around in this area?
Somewhere in that area, yes, sir.
And then Mr. Wallace's vehicle in this area?
Yes, sir.
And then is there a fence back here?
There is.
All right, so basically kind of blocked in, Mr. Wallace was at that point?
Objection calls for speculation.
You can answer the question if you know.
I don't know for sure how.
You don't know how close they were in proximity, but there was an object to, if we're looking at
Can
this.
I get you to step farther down so
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
If we're looking at this angle, there was a vehicle to his right, correct? Mr. Wallace's right. Well, to our right, Mr. Wallace's vehicle. There's a
Correct.
vehicle to the right of Mr. Wallace's.
Yes, sir.
There was a vehicle in front, or somewhat in front, not totally blocking him, but there's a vehicle in front of him, correct?
Correct.
And then there was Mr. Wallace's vehicle to the left of the maroon vehicle.
From our view, yes, sir.
And then there was a fence behind it.
Correct. And this is the duty belt for Mr. Rayner, right? Yes, sir.
Right, and do you see the taser?
That photo, it may be over here.
Okay. How about
It
there?
would actually be here, yes, sir.
All right. Can you see the safety latch for the taser?
I cannot, not in this photo, no, sir.
Okay. And that's the safety latch for the handgun and the safety latch there.
Correct.
You never did take a picture of the safety latch and the taser, did you?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, you can go back. All right, Detective Detter, were you, and I asked this because I can't remember, were you part of evidence viewing on December 27th?
I was not.
You were not? Okay. All right. You stated that you broke down all the items from the duty belt. When did you do that?
I believe it was in March of the,
March of 2023? So, and how was the duty belt stored in the evidence locker?
in a paper bag.
Just a paper bag?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so it was stored with the magazine was removed, I'm assuming, from the handgun while it was stored?
No, it was all intact. It wasn't touched until it was broken down.
Okay. All right. So from June until March of 2023, you had everything that was involved in the duty belt shoved in this paper bag?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. And when you broke the duty belt down, which was in March, did you examine all the items?
I counted rounds. I looked at the items as I placed them into packaging.
Okay. And in what position was the safety latch for the taser? You don't recall? When we were looking at the video or the photographs up there of the drone footage from that night, was there enough room to look behind that maroon car?
It was fairly far up against the fence line in the shrubbery.
But could you have gone back and looked behind it?
I don't know if anybody attempted to.
Okay. All right. I have nothing else, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor. I want to clarify a couple things. Defense was asking about the drone photographs.
Yes, sir.
Do you actually run the drone?
I do not.
Does anybody have like a pilot license to actually run the drone?
You do?
Do you just testify that those photos accurately depict the crimes?
Yes, sir.
In terms of Officer Rayner's vehicle, did you observe any what appeared to be recent damage from a vehicle having struck his car that night?
Not that I noted, no, sir.
May I have one moment, Your Honor? Yes. Thank you, Detective. I have no further questions.
No, Your Honor.
Subject to recall, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
I may just have one moment, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Tell you what, why don't we take our morning recess? We'll take a 15-minute break. All rise for the jury. Want to do the same? Sound enough. All right, you got your next witness?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Judge, on this witness, there's going to be surveillance video playing to his sort of redacted of it.
What is
The surveillance video is redacted, it's just shortened
surveillance
surveillance video
from
from across the street,
what street?
Kingston. It shows,
Okay.
It shows Officer Rayner's car going behind the apartments and the bench.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I would probably best read the instruction to
Okay.
redacted.
I can do that. And it's video, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ready for the jury? We got the defendant in? Yes, defendant's present. Please bring the jury. Are we done with, oh, you're going to use this again?
Yes, sir. For this next one.
All rise for the jury.
The jury is present. You may be seated. State call your next witness.
State call William Nipper.
Mr. Clerk, raise your right hand, Ms. Swanee.
Do you swear to tell the truth in this proceedings and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You'll come around here. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir. You're a little soft-spoken, so you might have to just speak up or lean into that mic a little bit, okay? Please state your entire name and spell your name for the court reporter, sir.
William Garrett Nipper Jr., WILLIAM, GARRETTE, KNIPPER,
And Mr. Nipper, how old are you, sir?
38,
And what city and county do you live in?
Daytona Beach, Volusia County,
What's your address in Daytona Beach?
110 Kingston Street.
Is this a house, an apartment,
It's a two-story house.
story house? Do you rent it?
Yes.
And were you living in that same house back in June of 2021, sir?
Yes.
Are you familiar with the apartments located in 130?
Yes.
In relation to your house, where are they?
Perpendicular.
Perpendicular, so they're kind of across the street
Yeah, at an angle.
at an angle, so is that to the west?
Yes.
And back in June, early summer, spring of 2021, have there been some incidents that were happening over at 133?
With all the apartments on that street.
So the apartment complex right next to it as well?
Yes.
Did this include some shootings?
Several.
Did your house actually get damaged by some of these shootings?
I've repaired 9 bullet holes in a matter of 6 months that year.
Did you end up that year getting some surveillance equipment?
Yes.
Where did you get that installed them, did you ever have any issues with them?
No,
No malfunctions, anything like that?
no.
The date and time on the cameras, is that closely accurate or not exact?
Yes, it's normally within an hour or so of the actual time.
If you wanted to see some video from one of your cameras, how would you access it?
I have a wireless mouse, and I have my own dedicated TVs for it in the house.
Dedicated TVs for it in the house? What was after a certain number of days, would old footage be deleted?
I have it set to reset once a week
So once
at
a
my
week,
designated time.
Yes, speak up, I'm sorry.
I have it set at a designated time once a week to reset itself.
So basically, go back in time up to 7 days.
Yes.
Okay. I want to draw your attention to June 23rd of 2021. That night, early morning, did law enforcement come to your home?
That night.
That night. Why were they? Do you know why they were coming there?
Apparently an officer had been shot at one of the apartments.
Why were they interested in your house?
Because I have some of the only surveillance footage on the street.
Okay. And did they want to copy or want to view your surveillance video?
Yes.
Did you pull the video up for them?
Yes.
And did you provide them the video surveillance that they asked for a copy of?
Yes. I let them take the whole hard drive for 48 hours.
And then they gave it back afterwards?
Yes.
Okay. Can that person witness, Your Honor?
Me.
So I'm showing you safe O for identification. You recognize any signature on that CD?
It's mine.
It's your signature. Have you watched the contents of that CD?
Yes.
Does that contain a portion of the surveillance video that you provided to law enforcement?
Yes.
Other than being shortened, was it altered in any way?
No.
Your Honor, Blue states O for identification into evidence is the next number exhibit.
Any objection? Without objection, admitted as evidence.
And permission to publish, Your Honor?
May you do so?
I'm just gonna get it ready for you. You can push the button. Why don't you go this one?
We got it. Okay. Before I start playing this, Mr. Nipper, what camera in your house are we looking at here?
One of the ones on the front porch, and it faces to the west, up Kingston, facing towards Ridgewood.
And is this the far western apartment, 133 Kingston, this complex here?
Yes.
And is there an access road to the parking lot behind on this far west side?
Yes. And
Another access road between these two buildings back to the parking lot as well?
yes.
Okay.
Would you like me to read the instruction?
Yes.
All right, members of the jury, you're about to view audio recording. The court instructs you that the recordings have been edited to eliminate irrelevant portions that would not add to your understanding of the case. The facts that the recording has been edited should not concern you in any way and must not impact the way you view and consider this evidence. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just one more question, Mr. Nipper. This was much earlier, right?
Yes.
The timestamp 6:23, sometimes 8 p.m.
I think it was an hour off at that time, roughly, so that's probably around 7.
But is this a good depiction of the area during the daytime? Since
Yes.
there were videos of that?
Yes.
Okay. Sir, I have no further questions for you.
All right, thank you. Any cross-examination?
Mr. Nipper, did you know Othal Wallace?
No,
No? You ever see him around at all?
not really. I don't go on that side of the street.
Okay. All right, and you said there are a lot of things going on around that time, gunshots and things like that?
Yes, the apartments were known to have drive-bys during broad daylight. I've had to break up gunfights in my own front yard because I have bigger guns in my house after my years of service.
Never have to break up a gunfight involving Othal Wallace?
No, I do not know him.
Ever have to encounter Othal Wallace?
Not that I know of.
Nothing else, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
May the witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense?
Yes, sir.
You are released from the subpoena. I'll say, call your next witness. You raise your hand.
Do you swear to tell the truth in this proceeding, so help you God?
I do.
Come around to your left.
Thank you.
You proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Make sure you speak loud and clear into the microphone, okay?
Yes, sir.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Good morning.
Could you please state your entire name and spell your last name for the court reporter?
My name is Corey Crumley, Corey, Crumbley.
And where do you work?
I work for the Florida Department of Law Enforcement in Orlando, and I'm assigned to the biology section.
How long have you been with FDLE?
21 years.
Can you just take the jury briefly through your 21 years with FDLE, the different positions you've had?
I started out as a forensic technologist, and that was just a laboratory support staff position where I made reagents. I assisted analysts in casework, handled maintenance, and quality control. After about 3.5 years, I was promoted to crime laboratory analyst, where I completed an approximately year-long training program that consisted of extensive reading, laboratory exams, written exams, oral exams, supervised casework, a mock trial, and a qualifying test. And then in 2017, I was promoted to senior crime laboratory analyst, which is the position that I hold now.
What does a senior crime laboratory analyst do on a day-to-day basis?
I perform independent casework, I train other analysts, and I'm also the CODIS administrator.
When you say casework, are you talking about DNA analysis?
Yes, STR, short tandem repeat DNA analysis.
Could you tell the jury what training you have in conducting DNA analysis, please?
I have that year-long training program that I just explained, and then every year I am required to participate and complete approximately 8 hours of external training. I read journal articles, I attend conferences and classwork, and complete FDLE training to keep abreast of current technologies and to learn new methodologies that are implemented into the laboratory.
Is the field of DNA, I'm getting ahead of myself, but it's kind of always evolving and changing, getting
Yeah. Yes, it's always getting better, new chemistries, better instrumentation in order to perform the testing.
Now, does FDLE have proficiency testing?
Yes.
What's proficiency testing?
A proficiency test is a test that I take twice a year that demonstrates that I'm competent and able to perform the testing properly, and it also tests the laboratory procedures that I use every day to perform the testing.
You said twice a year you do that?
Twice a year.
And do other analysts within your laboratory do that as well?
Everyone that is involved in independent casework participates in proficiency testing.
And have you testified before as an expert in the field of DNA, or have you rendered an opinion before in the field of DNA identification?
Yes, I have.
How many different times do you think you've rendered opinions in court?
Approximately 50 times.
Your Honor, I ask at this time this witness be allowed to render an opinion related to forensic biology to this jury.
The witness will be permitted to express an opinion. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Crumley, can you tell the jury what DNA is?
DNA is your genetic blueprint. Half of it comes from your mother, half of it comes from your father. Your DNA profile is determined at conception, and it remains the same throughout your lifetime.
Is each person's DNA unique to that person?
Unless you have an identical twin, your DNA would be unique for the markers that I test for.
And can you tell the jury where generally DNA can be found from a person?
It can be found in blood, semen, saliva, skin cells, bone, tissue, and hair.
Can you describe for the jury the process that you go through to process a DNA sample?
The first step is DNA extraction. That's where I use heat and chemicals to break open the cells and get the DNA out. The next step of the process is called quantitation. That test just tells me how much DNA I have recovered from that extraction process. I need to know how much DNA I have to move forward in the process. The next step is called amplification. During that step, I perform what's called the PCR test, the polymerase chain reaction. That allows me to target and copy the DNA at all of the locations that I test for. I only need to test the DNA where it is unique, individual to individual, so I'm only looking at specific sections or portions of the DNA. The next step is DNA analysis. That's where any DNA that I have obtained through the process is detected. I'm able to visualize a DNA profile and then make comparisons between DNA profiles from evidence in the case to DNA profiles from known reference samples in the case.
No, you say known reference samples. How does that, what do you usually get for a known?
Typically, I get what's called a buccal swab. Essentially, the collection of that involves taking a cotton tip swab. It looks like a Q-tip that you see every day, probably in your own homes and use. And it is placed inside the mouth, and a sample is collected from the inside of the cheek to collect cells that can be used to test for DNA. And once I have a DNA profile, that gives me a DNA profile for a particular individual that I can use to compare to unknown samples from evidence to determine who may or may not be a donor.
Now, you're not doing the swabs, swab, right?
No.
Law enforcement, any of the swabs?
Yes.
Do you also at times receive, for a known, to get a known standard, bloodstain card?
Sometimes it's a bloodstain card, yes. A bloodstain card is a piece of filter paper where blood from a particular person is spotted onto the card. Since that blood is collected directly from an individual, the same way that a buccal swab is, it can be used as a known reference sample for comparison if a DNA profile is obtained.
And is a bloodstain card more common, say, if the person whose DNA is becoming known or who you're testing for is deceased?
Yes.
So it's a medical examiner will collect.
That's correct.
And the process you described, that kind of the four-step process of your testing, is that commonly accepted within the scientific community?
It is.
Now, in this case, it relates to this case, were you a senior crime laboratory analyst back in June of 2021?
Yes, I was.
Were you only initially involved in this case at the very beginning?
Yes.
How did it come about that you became involved in the very beginning?
I received a phone call late in the evening on June 24th from command staff at FDLE in Orlando requesting that I come in and work a particular item of evidence rush. And I was available, so I went in to work it.
At a later time, after you worked these initial items, did another analyst handle the rest of the case?
Yes. That was Senior Crime Laboratory Analyst Tim Petrie.
Same job as you?
Same job as me.
What items did you receive in the initially from Daytona? Sorry.
I received a hat and clothing represented as being from Officer Jason Rayner.
And did you examine, which of these items did you examine?
I examined only the hat.
Did you also take a look at the hairs from the hat as well?
Yes, when I opened up the evidence to examine the hat, I saw 2 hairs. I collected those. I performed a microscopic exam on those hairs to determine if they were suitable to be sent forward for DNA testing, and they were not.
Why weren't they suitable to be sent forward for DNA testing?
Hairs suitable for DNA testing have to contain a root, and that root has to be a live root. Based on the microscopic exam that I performed, the hairs did not meet that criteria, so they were not moved forward for DNA.
And what about the hat? How do you go about processing a hat for DNA?
So when it comes to a hat, the first thing I'm going to do, of course, is to look at it for stains. If I see any stains of significance, I may collect samples from those stains for DNA testing. There were no stains. It was a little bit dirty, but there were no biological stains that I could see on the hat. So the next step would be for me to focus on who may have been wearing the hat. So I collected what I call a sample for wearer. When an individual wears an item of clothing, the skin comes in contact with that clothing, and there can be a transfer of skin cells to that item. I wanted to collect samples of those potential skin cells and send those forward to DNA analysis in order to attempt to obtain a DNA profile. So the hat, when you wear a hat, the best place for that transfer to happen is the inside band of the hat that comes in contact with your head as you're wearing it. So I took a cotton tip swab, again, similar to a Q-tip. I moistened it with some deionized water, and I rubbed that swab along the inner band of the hat in order to transfer any DNA that may be on the hat to the swab, and I sent the swab forward for DNA testing.
And did you take that swab through the same process you already described with the jury?
I did.
And what were the results of your analysis of that swab?
I obtained a mixed DNA profile consistent with 2 individuals. One of those donors was consistent with being a male individual, and the data was suitable for comparison.
When you say a mixed DNA profile, what is that?
Mixed DNA profile is a DNA profile that contains DNA from more than one person.
And now at this point, so you've got a mixed profile, at least 2 contributors, you said?
Yes, it was consistent with 2 people.
And suitable for comparison?
Yes.
Did you have anything to compare it to yet?
No, I did not have anything to compare it to.
Was that all of the testing you did in this case?
Yes.
The rest of the work was performed by senior crime laboratory analyst. It's always a mouthful. Petrie?
Yes, it was.
May I have one moment, Your Honor?
Yes. That's you.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll tend to the witness.
Cross-examination.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
There are numerous ways in which a person can transfer DNA from themselves to another substance or another item.
Yes.
Sweating is one of those ways.
Yes.
Bleeding,
Yes.
shedding hairs,
Shedding hairs.
spit.
Yes.
Okay. When we're talking about touch DNA, are any of those combinations existent when a person were to touch a substance and DNA would be left behind, or is there some other chemical that would leave the DNA when a person touches a substance?
It would depend on if something was on that person's hands, like saliva. If you bite your fingernails or something like that, there may be saliva on your hands that could be transferred as you touch an item. But typically when you touch something, it would be a skin cell transfer based on the contact that was made with that particular item.
Thank you. And certainly you'd perform some analysis to a hat, right?
Yes,
And a hat's an article of clothing.
it is.
So we can assume that there would be other articles of clothing which DNA can be detected upon.
Yes.
An officer's uniform for one of them?
Yes.
And in terms of DNA, if DNA exists on a particular item, we don't know when the DNA was there. We just know that it was there. Is that correct?
That's correct.
But are there any methods that you're familiar with that would allow an analyst like yourself to determine when DNA is present or when DNA found its way upon a particular item?
No, the testing that I perform only tells me what DNA is present on the sample that I perform the testing on. It does not tell me when it was deposited or in what manner it was deposited.
Okay. And the fact that you didn't perform any analysis as to the officer's clothing means that you have no testimony to provide about whether Mr. Wallace's DNA was present on the clothing. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that's true.
Nothing further.
All right, can you redirect?
No, Your Honor.
May the witness be excused?
You may, Your Honor.
Defense?
Yes.
Okay, you're released from the subpoena. You're free to go.
Thank you so much.
Next witness.
Yes, sir. The statement called Othal Wallace.
Yes, sir.
Right here, sir. Stand right there, face the clerk, raise your right hand, and sworn in.
Do you swear to tell the truth in this proceeding, so help you God?
I do.
You can follow the deputy over here. You may have a seat. Make sure you speak loud and clear into the microphone so everyone can hear what you have to say, okay? You may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, sir.
How you doing?
You're going to have to talk really loud.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you please introduce yourself to the jury and spell your last name?
First name, Opal. Last name, Wallace.
Can you spell your last name first, sir?
Wallace.
Mr. Wallace, where do you live?
Gainesville.
How long have you lived in Gainesville for?
All my life.
Do you know Mr. Wallace sitting over there?
That's my son.
Let me bring you up. What do you do for work right now? You work at University of Florida?
I do.
Been there for a while in the maintenance department?
Yes, sir.
Bring your attention now to June 23rd, 2021. Do you remember that night, somewhere between 9 and 10 o'clock, getting a phone call from your son?
I do.
Okay. Can you, where were you at when you got the phone call?
Laying in my bed.
What did he say when he called you, sir?
He just said he had some stuff going on and he need to get away.
Did he give you any specifics about it?
Not really.
Did he mention anything about a police officer being shot?
He did.
What did he tell you about that, sir?
The cop shot. I got to get away. That's it.
Did he ask you to do anything for him?
That's before a whip.
Right, and I know what a whip is and you do, but could you explain to the jury what a whip is?
A vehicle.
Okay, so between 9 and 10 o'clock that night, he called you asking to see if you get a vehicle?
Yes.
Well, what did you tell him when you were talking to him?
I see him later.
Okay. Did you ask him to call you when you got to Gainesville?
I did.
In the time when he first called you, to later on when they had got to Gainesville, or when he tried to call you again, did you learn of some information?
I did.
What sort of information did you learn that caused you not to want to answer the phone?
The incident of him being here now.
Okay. So you heard about a police officer being shot?
I did.
Why did you not want to answer the phone, sir?
I wasn't going to give him a car.
You didn't want to get involved, right?
That's right.
Did you receive a phone call, or did he try to call you that day again?
I did not.
Or did he try and call you?
shut my phone down.
Yes, sir. Do you remember if he said anything about trying to get to the border or get out of town like that?
Say, was it?
I'm sorry?
Meeting?
Overrule.
Ken, sir, do you recall that at all?
Say, was trying to leave.
Okay.
Page 9, line 2 through 5.
Judge, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Sir, do you remember, he gave a deposition way back, I guess it would have been in June of 2023, remember over the computer thing?
Yeah, maybe I did.
Okay. I'm gonna approach and show you some of the words that are typed out by the court reporter, just to see if it refreshes your memory. If you could just read from 2 through 5, see if it helps refresh it all.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember him making any statements about wanting to go to the border?
He said something to that effect.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Can I just have a moment, Judge?
Yes.
No further questions, Judge.
Any cross-examination?
No, Your Honor.
May the witness be excused.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, you are released from the subpoena and free to go. State your next witness.
I think Mr. Urbanek's talking to them out front. Let me just,
If you want to take a stretch break, you're welcome to stand up.
Judge, the state we call him Robert Stafford. He's on his way up. Yeah.
You find the drink suitable to your taste? Everyone okay? All right. Was it creamer the one that you were looking for? It was not. Oh, which one were you looking for? Okay. Sorry, I had to guess. It was Walmart and it was early. What did you say it was? Amaretto? Oh, I can't even pronounce that. you run out, let me know, okay? Yeah, you need to use the restroom, now'll be the time.
You're just in the elevator.
Okay, stand by. Stand by for a moment. Okay, come forward. If you'll raise your hand and be sworn, please.
Do you swear to tell the truth in this proceeding, so help you God?
I do.
Follow the deputy over here. Make sure you speak loud and clear into the microphone so everyone can hear what you have to say. You may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Please introduce yourself to the jury, spell your last name.
My name is Robert Stafford. It's Stafford.
What do you do for work right now, Mr. Stafford?
I'm currently a student.
Were you a law enforcement officer before?
I was.
Did you retire from that?
I kind of moved on to greener pastures. I moved out of state.
Yes, sir. Let's talk about back in June of 2021. Where were you working at the time?
The Alachua County Sheriff's Office.
In what capacity were you working?
Was a patrol captain in our patrol operations division.
Tell us a little bit about just your law enforcement background.
I started as a dispatcher working for the Williston Police Department, kind of a 911 operator there. Put myself through the police academy and became a police officer for them for about a year. And then from there, I moved to the Levy County Sheriff's Office, where I worked for about 2 years. And then moved over to the Alachua County Sheriff's Office, where I worked for 19 years.
Can I get you to stand behind the microphone, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
What was your responsibilities as a patrol captain back then, sir?
Daily operations of our patrol division, just ensuring that the deputies had all the equipment that they needed, overseeing just our normal day-to-day operations, making sure that the shifts were filled, making sure we had proper staffing, handling complaints that came in from citizens and others, and just taking care of our employees and the community.
Yes, sir. If I could bring your attention now to, it would have been June 26th, 2021, somewhere around 4:30 p.m. That day. Did you receive any calls or any information that caused you to start looking for a vehicle?
I did.
Can you tell us what call you received and what you started to look for?
One of my previous assignments with the Alachua County Sheriff's Office is I was assigned to our warrant bureau, where I was dual sworn with the U.S. Marshal Service as one of their special investigators. And I received a phone call from the U.S. Marshal Service, the deputy marshal that handled our area for that fugitive task force. And he gave me some information to look for a vehicle.
Do you remember what kind of vehicle you were asked to look for?
It was a 2016 Honda HR-V.
Was it gray in color?
It was.
Did they give you any guidance about where you might look for it, or did you take that upon yourself to just look around?
He gave me a kind of a rough corridor to look in. In Gainesville, I-75 runs right through the center of our county. And it was the area of Newberry Road, just State Road 26. It's around the Oaks Mall, kind of that. It's about probably a square mile around that area.
Just may approach the witness.
May.
I'm going to show you what's marked as states Y for identification. Take a moment and look at these two aerials. See if you recognize them, sir.
I do.
Yes. Okay. Are those fair and accurate aerials? One of location from Daytona area to Gainesville area, and then the second one a close-up area of Gainesville?
It is.
Anything seem to be changed or altered about those? They seem to be consistent with maps.
They look accurate from maps I've seen before.
This time the state would move in states Y.
No objection, Your Honor.
Without objection, admitted as evidence.
Just may I have the witness step down.
May do so, but make sure you speak up loud. Okay, you can stand on this side.
I'm going to show you this. This is 23A in evidence. If you can take this, I'm going to have you stand on the side there so the jury can see. Move it up a little.
All the way as close as you can to the mouth. Thank you.
Can you just describe where Daytona is in this map in relation to where Gainesville is, sir?
Daytona Beach is where the red pin is in Gainesville.
So it's, I guess we could say northwest, Gainesville's northwest of Daytona.
It is.
Do you know how far, about if you were to drive?
Typically takes about 2.5 hours to get from Gainesville to.
Okay. And if I can have you stay up there, showing you what's 23B. Can you just orient the jury as to what this map was, sir?
So the I-75 is the State Road that, State Road 93, and then State Road 26 is Newberry Road, which I was speaking of earlier. And the area that I was told to search in is just kind of this area around I-75.
Okay. What would be located in this area? What kind of, is it just residences or the businesses?
It's a mix, but it's the majority of it is businesses, malls, and a lot of restaurants and hospitals.
Is that where the Oaks Mall would be, somewhere in that area?
Yeah, those small is.
Did you begin to look in those areas for the vehicle?
I did.
Tell us what procedure you utilized to start looking for the vehicle.
So the areas that I was looking in were large parking lots, an area where you're working with the forces and we're looking for fugitives. A lot of them would kind of hide their vehicles in plain sight, so you put them in large parking lots with wind. So I
have the license plate number of the vehicle you're looking for? If I can have you just stay up here for the next first witness, Judge. I'm going to show you what's marked as states Z. Take a moment and look at this, see if you recognize this closet. Okay. This is a very accurate depiction of an aerial view of the Home Depot and of a view from on the Home Depot. Anything to be changed or altered about this? This is time to say who is states Z.
No objection.
Without objection, admit this evidence.
So I'm going to show you what's in evidence as states 24A. So if you can just illustrate to the jury what this is that we're looking at, and then we'll talk about if you found anything here.
This is the strip of businesses that I was referring to earlier. This is the Home Depot. There's a furniture store in here as well as a liquor store, some other thing coming further in.
Did you have an opportunity to go through and look at the parking lot?
I did.
Did you see a vehicle that possibly could have been the vehicle you were looking for? Can you tell the jury where you were when you saw that and what you had to do?
I entered in the drive through the center drive here, made a left, and went down the back side of the block. And saw the vehicle parked approximately in this area.
Did I have you just some of those let me slide this.
So when I drove in this way, and I drove to the back of the parking lot, and as I drove across, I saw a vehicle that matched the description of it, parked in this area along the road bushes, backside of the park.
I'm going to show you what's 24B. Is this a frontal view of we were just talking about right here, that area? Is that a front view?
It is.
Tell us where the car was parked and how it was parked, sir.
It was 3 spots in from the edge, back all the way up against it.
When you say back up against the bushes, was the license plate concealed where you weren't able to see it at that point?
When I drove in front of the vehicle, it looked like the car that I was looking for, just based on, I pulled up a Google image of a Honda HRV, just to see what the body type looked like. It looked like that vehicle, so I drove out. I couldn't see it from the front, so I drove around to the outside here, parked on the other side of the street, and I had to walk up and physically move the bushes out of the way in order to
And just to back up to something you said before, so you saw a vehicle that looked similar to the HRV, but in order for you to make a more definitive, you actually had to pull up an image from the internet.
Yes.
When you pulled the bushes away, did the license plate match the vehicle you were looking for?
It was.
Okay, please sit back down now. Thank you. Do you remember what the license plate number was?
If I could refer to my notes, I know
Yeah.
it was a California plate.
Will that refresh your memory, sir?
It will.
Yes, sir.
It was 7NTX 532. And it was California.
California, yes, sir. So once you verified it was the vehicle, what did you do next?
At that point, I retreated back to my vehicle, and then I drove back around to the front and was on the other side of that. Kind of see a little grass area where the power pole is, kind of directly in front of it.
Right here.
Yeah, I drove on the other side of that and contacted our dispatch center and notified them that I'd located the vehicle and asked for them to dispatch a couple deputies to my area.
Did you, basically, at that point, were you securing the vehicle and keeping contact of it?
Yes, I was just keeping distance because I didn't know, what may be going on inside the vehicle, so I just stayed back from it, contacted some other deputies before we approached it.
Did other deputies arrive to assist you?
Yes.
Once they arrived, did you guys, I guess, clear the vehicle or do something to make sure it was safe?
Yeah, I had one of our canines come around. We knew the vehicle was going to be taken back as evidence to the sheriff's office and be put inside of our secured storage, which is inside of our sheriff's office. So I had one of our canines come around. That is a bomb detection canine, just to walk around the vehicle, just to make sure there wasn't anything explosive inside.
Once you cleared the vehicle, made sure it was safe, was that vehicle then sealed up and towed to your, I guess, your sheriff's office?
It was.
When you saw the vehicle that day, did you see anybody inside of it, or see anyone around it at that time?
No, when we initially approached it, all the windows were up, the doors were locked. We didn't see anything inside of it or anyone inside of it. So then we just proceeded from there.
And just so we're clear, this was on June 26th that you had discovered this.
Correct.
May I have just a moment, Judge?
Yes.
No further questions, Judge.
All right, thank you. Any thoughts?
I do not. Morning, Mr. Stafford. You said that you'd received a call that they wanted you to look for a 2016 gray Honda HR-V. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And then when you were searching around, it's not up there anymore, but when you were searching around, you found the a vehicle that matched that in the Home Depot parking lot.
I did.
All right. And from there, you pulled up an image of it on a website or internet just to confirm what it looks like?
Previous to my search, pulled just an image of what that vehicle looked like, so I kind of had an idea on what I was looking for before I started searching.
And you knew absolutely that it was an HR-V, right?
Yes.
Okay. So when you went up, if you look at the car and it's a different model, you're going to say, well, yes, it was similar, but it's not the right model. So you would have gone on elsewhere, right? Okay. And then once you did see that it was an HR-V, you then walked around and looked at the license plate to confirm that it was in fact the car that they wanted you to look for.
Correct.
All right. And all you had to do was walk around the car and look at the license plate.
I had to actually go around to the back because it was backed into the bushes. I couldn't see the plate from the sides, so I had to go around to the other side of the bushes and pull the bushes out of the way in order to see the plate.
But you were able to see it, right? Once you pulled it away.
Yeah, once I pulled it away, it unobscured it.
And then when you had everybody else come in with the K9, all that, did you do any searching of the vehicle?
I didn't.
Okay. Collect any evidence? I have nothing else, John.
Thank you. Any redirect
No, sir. He can be excused.
from the subpoena?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you're free to go. You're released from the subpoena.
Thank you.
Judge, can we approach that report?
Sure. The next witness might take us a little bit into the lunch hour, but we'll accommodate for that. Okay, call your next witness.
Do you swear to tell the truth in this proceeding, so help you God?
I do. Thank you.
Can you speak loud and clear into the microphone so they can hear what you have to say, okay?
Yes, sir.
May I inquire, Judge?
You may proceed.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could you please state your entire name and spell it for the court reporter?
Sure. David Dinardi, D-A-V-I-D, Dinardi, D-I-N-A-R-D-I.
What is your current occupation?
I'm a sergeant detective with the Daytona Beach Police Department.
How long have you been a police officer with Daytona Beach?
A little over 17 years.
Were you anywhere else before Daytona Beach?
Yes, I was a Boston police officer for 9 years.
How long have you been in the robbery homicide division, sir?
I was in the robbery homicide division 7 years as a detective, and I've now been there 2 years as the supervisor.
At the time of this incident back in June of 2021, were you there in your capacity as a detective?
Yes.
It's somewhat self-explanatory, but what types of cases does robbery homicide handle?
Robbery homicide unit investigates robberies, homicides, missing people, and any other deaths that occur outside the care of a doctor.
How many detectives are typically in the robbery homicide division?
There are currently 5 full-time detectives and 3 part-time detectives as well.
Does the robbery homicide unit have access to a crime scene investigation unit?
Yes.
When robbery homicide gets a new case, so new robbery, new homicide, is one detective typically assigned as the lead detective to the case?
Yes, sir.
But when a detective is assigned to a case, do they do every single thing that has to do with that case?
No.
How does it work? When a lead detective is assigned, does he rely on his other detectives to carry out investigative leads as well?
Yes, absolutely. Like you said, while there is one detective who is assigned as the lead detective, we do operate and function as a team. So when possible, we all respond to the scene, and then we all work together as a team.
Is there typically an on-call detective from the division?
Yes.
Now, going back to June of 2021, when you were a detective in that division, were you the on-call detective on June 23rd?
I was the on-call detective that week, and then I was also working at the time of the incident.
So you were working nights that week?
Yes, I was.
And did you become the lead detective in this case?
Yes, I did.
When and how were you first notified of Officer Rayner being shot?
I was first notified when, like I said, I was working that night. Officer Rayner was shot and killed in District 2, and I was in District 1 at the time, so I was on a different radio channel. But I believe almost, very quickly, the dispatcher on the Channel 1 radio said something about an officer being down in District 2.
And did you actually go out to 133 Kingston?
Yes, I did.
Can you describe that building generally for the jury?
Sure. 133 Kingston Avenue is a 2-story apartment complex. It is kind of like a light yellow in color. Like I said, it's 2 stories. There are 12 apartments in total in the building. There's 6 apartments that face the front of the building, and then 6 that face the rear, 3 on each floor.
How long after the actual shooting do you think you got there?
I probably got there approximately 5 minutes after the shooting.
Were there other officers already on scene?
Yes.
Was Officer Rayner still there?
Yes, he was.
What was going on with him when you arrived?
When I arrived, he was there were several officers around him trying to help him, and I believe the ambulance had just shown up as well. So they were trying to tend to Officer Rayner.
Were you there when Officer Rayner was taken away in the ambulance?
Yes, I was.
In terms of resources at the location, did you have multiple detectives at your disposal that night?
Yes, sir.
After Officer Rayner was transported by emergency responders, what was your focus? What was the #1 priority at that point in time?
Most important thing right there was to figure out what had happened and who had shot Officer Rayner. Was our priority.
And what was the most important piece of evidence you had at that point in time?
The most important piece of evidence was Officer Rayner's Axon camera.
And do you know, as the lead investigator, what happened to his Axon after he was transported to the hospital?
Yes, the Axon was brought to the beachside precinct where it was docked so that the camera footage could be uploaded and then viewed by investigators.
So that was disseminated to various investigators with your agency after it was docked and downloaded?
Yes.
Did you have an opportunity to review that video?
Yes, I did.
Was the person who shot Officer Rayner clearly depicted in that video?
Yes, he was.
Was the front of his vehicle clearly depicted in that video?
Yes, it was.
And how did you use that video to aid in your investigation and in contacting members of the community that night?
The Axon, several screenshots were taken from that video. A screenshot that clearly showed the suspect's face, and then a screenshot was also taken that clearly showed the suspect's vehicle. And then those screenshots were, we used them when we conducted the multiple neighborhood canvasses that we took part in.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
State 7. Is that one of the screen grabs that you used to the community and show to members of the community trying to identify this person?
Yes, sir.
Is that one of the person of the vehicle?
This is the one of the vehicle.
And does it depict the front of the vehicle?
Yes, it does.
Showing you the composite. There's 2 photographs. Composite 8. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes, I do.
What does that depict?
This is a screenshot from Officer Rayner's body worn camera that depicts the suspect of the person who shot and killed him.
And was that one of the other photographs you used to show to members?
Yes, it was.
So you said you did a neighborhood canvas. Who did this neighborhood canvas?
Multiple officers and detectives.
I mean, what is it? Is it just pretty much knocking on doors?
Yes, you just knock on doors, just try to find any potential witnesses.
And that include all the apartments at 133 Kingston?
Yes, sir.
I want to ask you about 133 Kingston. Was there any surveillance cameras or video that showed the back of the parking lot where Officer Rayner was shot?
No, there was not.
To your knowledge, did one house actually have surveillance video from across the street?
Yes.
Do you recall that address?
Yes, 110 Kingston Avenue.
And was that video surveillance collected by your fellow investigators?
Yes, sir.
And what about in terms of contacting the residents at 133 Kingston? Did y'all have any luck there on your neighborhood canvas?
Yes, we did.
And what person was it that was contacted?
Taisha Lewis.
And do you know who first spoke with Miss Lewis?
Yes, Detective Mary Tuludo.
And did Detective Toledo tell you about her conversation with Miss Lewis?
Yes, she did.
Did you end up also making contact with Miss Lewis?
Yes, I did.
And did you interview Miss Lewis?
Yes, I did.
And did you show Miss Lewis anything?
Yes, I did.
Did that include
Me.
States 7 and 8 that we were just looking at?
Yes, sir. Both of those.
First state 7, can you just hold that up for the jury so they know which one we're talking about? That's the photograph.
Step aside.
Yes, this is the photograph of the vehicle.
And was she able to identify whose vehicle that was?
Yes.
Whose was it?
That was the vehicle used by Othal Wallace.
And did you also show her states 8? You hold that up for the jury again so they know which one we're talking about?
Yes, I also showed Miss Lewis this photograph.
Did she know that person?
Yes.
Who was that person?
She identified this person as Othal Wallace.
Sir. Once you had Mr. Wallace identified from the video, what did you do with this information?
Once Othal Wallace was identified, our shift then focused on doing an extensive background history on Mr. Wallace to find out as much information as we could about him.
So you just wanted to learn as much as you could about him as a person?
Yes.
Did this include trying to find potential phone numbers?
Yes.
Did it include trying to find contacts and addresses?
Yes.
And what about social media accounts?
Yes, social media as well.
And were detectives able to locate a social media account for Othal Wallace?
Yes, they were.
And did this include an Instagram account?
Yes, it did.
Do you recall the Instagram account name?
Yes.
What was it, sir?
RBG Vibes.
Did one of your fellow detectives bring to your attention that night a story or an audio posting that was put on that account?
Yes.
Which detective was that?
Detective Christian Patella.
And did he actually send you a copy of this audio recording?
Yes, he did.
Did you have a chance to listen to it yourself?
Yes.
And to your knowledge, did Detective Patella preserve that audio clip?
Yes, he did.
And once you had identified this Instagram profile, RBG Vibes, you said?
Yes, sir.
Did you send anything to Instagram for purposes of your investigation?
Yes.
What did you send?
A preservation request was sent to Instagram.
And what's a preservation request?
It is when we notify a company, in this case Instagram, we send them information about the account name, for example, RBG Vibes in this case, and we tell them that as a result of a criminal investigation we're conducting, we would like to preserve this. So it kind of means they kind of freeze the account at that moment in time, so that if anything is deleted, we can still have access to it later with a court order.
Does it kind of give you more time to potentially get a search warrant if that was the case?
Yes.
Now, having identified Othal Wallace and his vehicle from the body-worn camera, what did you do?
He was identified. We started to look for Mr. Wallace.
And did you obtain a warrant for his arrest?
Yes, sir.
At that time, for what charge?
Attempted first-degree murder of a law enforcement officer.
And why was it attempted at that point in time?
When the warrant was obtained, which was the next day, June 24th, Jason Reno was still alive.
And where was he?
At Halifax Hospital.
Were you and your agency in constant communication with Halifax really over the next several weeks?
Yes, sir.
And you said just before that you were turning your attention to trying to find Mr. Wallace.
Yes.
Were you assisted by other agencies in trying to locate Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
And what other agencies were helping Daytona Beach?
There were numerous agencies, other local agencies. the Volusia County Sheriff's Office, State Agency, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, as well as federal agencies to include the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the U.S. Marshals.
And who took the lead in terms of actually trying to find him of those agencies?
The U.S. Marshals took the lead.
May I have one moment, Your Honor?
You may.
I'll tender the witness, Your Honor.
All right, cross-examination.
Detective Dinardi? Morning.
Good morning.
Sir, you've been a law enforcement officer for almost 25 years, is that correct?
A little over 26.
26, I'm sorry. You'd agree with me that an officer's powers of observation are important to hone in on, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you would agree with me that just as it's important to observe those who are deserving of suspicion, it's also important for an officer to understand who are not deserving of suspicion. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
You have many tools of the trade as a law enforcement officer, don't you?
Yes.
Body-worn camera?
Yes.
Body-worn camera was critical to this case.
Yes.
And the purpose of body-worn cameras, I would say in a word, and correct me if I'm wrong, would be transparency. Would you agree with that?
That's part of it, yes.
Also officer safety?
Yes.
The more information that we have on a body-worn camera, the more information that you have to look into and investigate.
Yes.
Okay. One of the aspects of the body-worn camera is that it is on when an officer is engaging a member of the public. Do you agree with that?
It depends what you mean by the word engaging.
Okay. Going up to a person who's sitting in their car out in front of their apartment complex.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And part of the policy for the body-worn camera is when you press it, it goes back for 30 seconds, right?
Yes.
All right. And that's set forth in the policy.
Yes.
Are you familiar with what Daytona Beach policy would enable an officer to engage sleep mode, thereby preventing the 30-second look back?
Not without reviewing the policy.
Okay. You reviewed the body-worn camera extensively in this investigation. Do you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And Mr. Rayner was shot on June 23rd, right?
Yes, sir.
And the next day, on June 24th, you accused my client of attempted first-degree murder.
Yes.
Okay. And specifically, in terms of the procedure in that accusation, you authored what's called a charging affidavit against him, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's kind of another word to say your report.
Yes.
Right. And had Mr. Wallace been found that day, he would have been arrested for attempted first-degree murder, right?
Yes.
Based upon the allegations that you set forth.
Yes.
And you've been doing this for 26 years. I'm sure you appreciate the importance of report writing.
Yes.
And I think we can both agree that not every single fact that you observe or take in goes into a report, right?
Yes, sir.
But the important ones, correct?
Yes.
Foundational, fundamental facts should go into a report.
Again, like you said, not everything goes in it. No, goes into a report.
Okay. And there's kind of a difference between like the master, we'll call it like the incident report, and then supplemental reports, right?
Yes.
The supplemental report would be something that details your involvement at some point after you've already drafted a report.
Yes.
And you did, I don't know if you remember at the top of your head, I mean, I have a charging affidavit and I have several supplements, 4 or 5. Is that consistent with your recollection?
That sounds correct. Yes, sir.
In terms of the procedure of doing a supplemental report, everybody in the agency would know that that's something that you can do if you come across information after the fact, right?
Yes.
All right. And are you familiar with the contents of your report that you drafted on June 24th, 2021?
Are you referring to the charging affidavit?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you would agree with me that within the charging affidavit where you accuse my client of first-degree murder, you make no reference at all to Mr. Rayner potentially pursuing the stolen vehicle that we've been talking about in the trial?
Objection.
Overrule.
So I'll repeat the question for you. You would agree with me that in the sworn charging affidavit wherein you accuse my client of first-degree murder, you make no reference of Jason Rayner going and pursuing a potential stolen vehicle?
That is correct.
Okay. You would also agree within that same charging affidavit, which you authored one day after the shooting, that there's no mention of Officer Rayner's suspicions being alerted due to my client engaging in any cannabis possession or smoking?
That is correct.
Furthermore, you would agree with me that there is no reference in your report about any contact that you had with Amanda Dickens and any information that she might have involving Mr. Rayner's duties that evening, correct?
Yes, sir.
In fact, there's no detail either in this report or any other report talking about you going and interviewing those that had contact with Jason Rayner on his last shift. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
In fact, I'll characterize it, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but there's really no discussion within your charging affidavit about the origin or basis for Officer Rayner going and making contact with my client while he was sitting in his car in front of his apartment.
That is correct. Yes, sir.
However, you do make reference to, and I'm just reading from line 10, the black male failed to follow lawful commands. You put that in your report, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. However, you would agree with me that also within your report, there's nowhere that talks about any probable cause that would justify an encounter between Jason Rayner and Othal Wallace.
Probable cause is not necessary for an encounter.
Okay. Because a person can just walk away from an irregular encounter, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's different than probable cause. You have to stay because you're detained.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And if an officer has a reasonable suspicion or probable cause, they can detain that person, right?
Yes, sir.
And they can make an order based upon such suspicion. You agree with that?
Yes, sir.
And if the person disobeys that order, that person is violating the law.
Correct.
Okay. So on the opposite side of things, if an officer has a proper suspicion and they command a person to stay, the command that is levied is a lawful command.
Judge, I'm going to object relevance and also.
We got into it. Overrule.
Right?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Absolutely. If an officer is acting on a founded suspicion and they make a command to a person in line with that suspicion, that command is a lawful command.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And yet you make no reference to, in your report, why you categorize Mr. Rayner's actions as lawful.
Categorize it that way from watching the body cam video.
Okay, understood. And let's talk about the body-worn camera footage. Do you know approximately how many hours or minutes you spent looking at that video?
No, sir.
Okay. Over 50, over 100?
Probably at least 50.
Okay. Prior to charging my client, or?
Probably 50 overall, at least 50 overall.
Understood. Do you know approximately how many hours you would have reviewed it in connection with your charging affidavit?
No, sir.
And in the video, you agree that we don't have that 30-second look back?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And nowhere in your report do you contemplate the fact that Jason Rayner had disabled the normal 30-second look back and went into sleep mode?
Correct. That is not in my report.
Had the 30-second look back existed, we would obviously have the depictions of what Officer Rayner observed in those 30 seconds from the time that he put his camera on backwards.
Yes.
You would agree that when the video first comes up, there is no observable criminal activity in the frame that you see?
Are we talking about what possibly Officer Rayner observed or just from the video itself?
I'm just talking about you relied on the video in connection with your investigative shows, right?
Yes.
And you would agree with me that upon looking at the video, there's nothing, let's just take the first 10 seconds when Rayner gets out and walks over to the car before he's even in between the two cars. There is no observable criminal activity depicted in the video.
Based solely on what I can see in the video, that is correct.
Okay. And you would agree with me that had you believed that Officer Rayner observed some criminal activity when he went around the side of the car, that you would have put it in your report?
I can't tell what Officer Rayner observed.
Okay. And I appreciate that, and I'm not asking you to do that. My question is for you as the lead investigator in this murder investigation, and one of your colleagues, had you observed criminal activity in the video, you would have put it in your report?
Again, if it was observable in the video, then yes.
Okay. So I guess we can move on to something else, and we can agree that you, in investigating this murder of your colleague, saw no criminal activity in the video.
Strictly from the video, that is correct.
Okay. And similarly, you investigated the fact, or let me ask a better question. You would agree that there was no 911 call placed by any citizen that prompted Jason Rayner to appear at 133 Kingston and have a contact with Othal Wallace?
That is correct.
Okay. You would agree with me that there's no evidence to suggest that any citizen or member of the community flagged down Jason Rayner's car and told him to go and make contact with somebody at 133 Kingston Avenue?
I don't think I can answer that because Officer Rayner is not here today.
Okay. You uncovered there was no person that came forward in the investigation and said, I flagged down Jason Rayner and said, go back there and check out what this guy's doing in his car, right?
That is correct.
In reviewing the video, you would agree with me that there is no depiction of any smoke emanating from Mr. Wallace's vehicle?
Again, from what I can see on the video, there does not appear to be smoke, no.
Okay. And similarly, you would also agree that there are no visible embers associated with any cannabis, blunt, or joint, or cigarette, or whatever you want to call it, right?
Again, based solely on the video, no.
And obviously, you've probably encountered cannabis in your duties, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I'll be fair, you can smell, we'll call it a roach or a burnt cigarette. That has an odor to it, right?
Yes.
However, what is the more pungent odor that would arise suspicion would be if the cannabis is burning, right? Let me ask you a better question. It's a heck of a lot easier to tell if somebody's in possession of marijuana if they're holding a joint that's burning as opposed to a joint that's not burning.
I believe so, yes.
And again, there's not, and I know that I was singular in my questions about your charging affidavit, but if I'm wrong, please correct me. But in reviewing all of your supplemental reports that you authored in this case, there's not a single mention of this stolen vehicle pursuit in any of them. Is that correct?
I believe you're correct, yes.
Okay. And the same question goes for cannabis. There's not a single mention of cannabis in any of these reports.
Again, I believe you're correct, yes.
Okay. And you would agree with me that that theory of this stolen vehicle pursuit came long after my client was charged with first-degree murder?
I don't know when a theory was developed.
Okay. So you have no idea from where or from whom this central part of the state's prosecution arose?
You know, that's an answer, Judge.
Sustained.
Same thing for cannabis? You have any idea when that came into the picture?
No, sir, but to get back to the stolen car, that came out that evening.
Pardon me?
The stolen car came out, that evening.
Okay. You just didn't put any mention of it in your report?
No, sir.
There are observable differences between the vehicle that's depicted in the bolo and my client's vehicle. Do you agree with that?
Differences and similarities, yes.
Okay. And those similarities on the passenger side of the vehicle would be the back rear lighting of my client's vehicle?
Without having the two pictures in front of me, I don't think I can
Well, let me ask this.
That's lighting.
I mean, if you close your eyes, you can picture kind of the opening frame of the video, right?
Yes.
And you would agree with me that there's nothing that's obscuring Officer Rayner's ability to see the passenger side of my client's view.
Objection calls for speculation based on what Officer Rayner saw.
Rephrase the question, please.
Sir, do you have 20/20 eyesight?
No, sir.
What's your eyesight?
I don't know.
Okay. You went to the scene that night?
Yes.
Okay, you stood in essentially the same area that Mr. Wallace's vehicle was in that evening?
Yes.
Okay. You consider yourself a reasonable person?
Yes, sir.
Right. And if you're standing in the location that Jason Rayner was standing, using fairly decent eyesight, do you agree that there was nothing that was obscuring Jason Rayner's ability to see the entirety of the passenger side of Mr. Wallace's vehicle?
Objection, speculation, as to what Jason Rayner saw.
I think for a reasonable person in the same circumstances with good eyesight.
Okay. Do you understand the question?
I would like him to repeat it again.
Okay. Was there anything blocking Mr. Rayner's view from seeing the passenger side of Othal's car?
Objection, speculation. You can't testify to what Officer Rayner saw.
Sustained.
Have you seen the video? You've seen the video, right?
Yes, sir.
Do you see in the video anything obscuring Officer Rayner's ability to see the passenger side of the car?
You can see parts of the passenger side, yes.
Okay, that's not my question. My question is, do you see anything that's obscuring Jason Rayner's ability to see the passenger side of the car?
Again, it depends if you're saying the passengers, parts of it, or the entire passenger, the entire.
Let's start with the entire passenger side of the car. Anything obscuring?
I don't know if there's anything obscuring, but I also don't know if Officer Rayner could have seen the entire passenger side of the car.
You may.
And this is with Exhibit 7. Okay. And maybe I'm asking a confusing question. When I talk about something obscuring, I'm talking about I can't see through this solid item right here, right?
Correct.
Okay. So just point out to the jury, take as much time you want. Tell me what items would obscure Jason Rayner's ability to see the side of that vehicle in that picture.
Objection, speculation against what Jason Rayner saw.
Okay. I'll withdraw. What do you see that's obscuring Jason Rayner's ability to see the side of the, what do you see that obscures the passenger side of that vehicle?
Objection, speculation, the best evidence is the photograph itself, just in evidence for the jury to look at.
The video is the best evidence. Sustained.
Mr. Wallace refers to Mr. Rayner as sir in the video.
Objection again, the best evidence of the video is in evidence for the jury to look at and making their decision in this case.
Best evidence is the video sustained.
Detective, whenever you were being asked questions by the state, did the state give you the benefit of watching the video in connection with your testimony? Here today, just a few moments ago?
No, sir.
Do you recall being present at an evidence view with myself and Mr. Shoemaker?
Yes.
Object beyond the scope of direct, Your Honor.
Overall.
The duty belt in the case, very important piece of evidence, right?
Yes.
Sorry, the what?
The duty belt? The duty belt was an important piece of evidence?
Yes.
Probably the most important piece of evidence?
No, sir.
Next to the video, second best?
Objection, relevance, Judge.
I'll move on, no problem. The duty belt was kept in this paper bag here?
I believe it was put in that bag, yes.
Just this bag, nothing else?
I believe so, yes.
And in the duty belt that we have for the jury, the gun is out of the holster, right?
Yes, sir.
And the taser is out of the holster too, right?
Yes, sir.
And you would agree with me that there are no contemporaneous pictures of the way that the taser existed on on the night of June 23rd, 2021?
I believe you're correct, yes.
And the taser itself has a mechanism that you kind of unclick it from the back portion of the taser?
Yes.
Actually, could you describe the series of events that an officer has to do in order to take their taser out of their belt?
It's kind of hard for me. I don't think I could properly explain it. I don't wear a duty belt. It's kind of just something I do from muscle memory. I don't think I could put it into words.
And can you testify that during the interaction between Rayner and Wallace that Jason Rayner didn't go for his belt in some capacity?
Objection, speculation.
Sustained.
Can you testify that whenever Jason Rayner's belt was removed from his person, that the switch on his taser was not engaged for use?
Objection, speculation.
Sustained.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yeah.
Approaching with IDB for the defense.
You may.
Sir, I'm handing you two pictures marked for identification by defense. You recognize those pictures?
Yes.
You recognize, I think, the bottom portion of your body is at least in one of those pictures?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you observe the taser in those pictures?
Yes.
In what condition is the clip that we've been discussing?
Objection, items not in evidence, Judge.
Sustained, but you can rephrase the question.
Are those fair and accurate depictions of the duty belt as it was photographed in your presence on December 27th, 2000?
It appears to be yes.
And just the last follow-up question, appears to be a fair, accurate depiction that, to your knowledge, there's been no alterations, no deletions, no enhancements to these photographs. They appear to be a clear version of what we would have seen in the room that day?
Yes, sir.
No further questions.
All right, thank you. Any redirect?
Yes, Judge. Detective Sergeant Dinardi, what is the purpose of that charging affidavit, the probable cause affidavit?
The purpose is to put in evidence to, I guess, show to a judge that there is probable cause that the person accused committed the crime for which he's accused.
Okay, so you're doing kind of an outline of the case to establish probable cause to get an arrest warrant, is that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So do you put every single detail in a charging affidavit?
No, sir.
And your investigation, you said you got that warrant on the 24th?
Yes, sir.
Did your investigation just stop on the 24th?
No, sir.
Would that be prudent to just stop an investigation on the 24th after you established probable cause to arrest somebody?
No, sir.
The supplements that you filed, did those go over several months afterwards, documenting some of your personal involvement in the case?
Months and years, yes.
And in terms of what happened that night, you mentioned that you were aware of the chase of a Honda vehicle that night.
Yes, sir.
Was that documented on other officers' body-worn cameras?
Yes, sir.
Was that documented on other officers' police reports?
Yes.
And all of that is, of course, made available to the defense in a prosecution?
Yes.
Try not to lead, counsel.
Yes, Your Honor. And defense asked you about, in your report, there was nothing of what Officer Rayner thought or saw was going on in the car. Defense asked you that. You remember that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Defense asked you there was nothing in your report about Officer Rayner thinking it was a stolen vehicle or thinking there was some other reason that he came into contact with Othal Wallace. Do you recall that question?
I do, yes.
Were you able to ask Officer Rayner ever what was going through his mind in this case?
Unfortunately, no.
Why not?
He was in the hospital in no condition to talk for approximately 55 days before he passed away.
I have one moment, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
And no further questions, but I will need him subject to recall, Your Honor.
Any cross?
Detective Dinardi, there are things that Jason Rayner could have done that would have been depicted on the video to give some insight into what he was saying. Do you agree with that?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Nowhere in any of your reports, whether it be an incident report, a charging affidavit, a supplemental report, do you ever mention anything about a stolen vehicle?
As I said earlier, yes, you're correct.
Okay. And similarly to the cannabis, nowhere in any of your reports?
Same thing, you're correct, yes.
Okay. When an officer comes up on any scene, consensual encounter, probable cause, or what have you, they have the ability to key in to dispatch about what they're doing and who they're contacting, right?
Objection beyond the scope of redirect.
Sustained.
Your Honor, can we approach?
Sure.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir.
All rise for the jury.